The Now to Live show is your network connection to the spirit of sobriety. On the last episode, we were discussing steps 1, 2, and 3. And prior to that, we talked about the steps being like mountains. So last episode, we climbed step 1 mountain, step 2 mountain, step 3 mountain. And by that time, we've experienced a greater vision, spiritual vision, if you will, of how to stand on that foundation that you're building of sobriety. Now, before we get to step 4, 5, and 6, I just like to make an acknowledgement, and that is we're going to be discussing things that are going to be a bit difficult for us to deal with. So before we do this, I don't want you to think of this as being a problem, because problems are only problems when we think about them as being problems. You know, our thinkers are broken. You know, we have created a situation in our life where our mental capacity becomes extremely negative and fearful and difficult to deal with on a daily basis. So what the steps do is they help you to work with those problems that you think are problems and provide solution to those problems that you think are problems. And therefore, we teach you how to think about solution instead of the problem. So in step 4, it requires a little bit of effort because step 4 is about confession. Now, what does that mean? The step 4 mountain is a little bit higher than step 3. It's probably going to be one of the harder steps, harder mountains for you to climb. And the reason for that is because you're going to have to be truthful, number 1. And number 2, you're going to have a pen and a piece of paper or multiple pieces of paper. Maybe a notebook would work. I think that's probably better. Get a notebook. And maybe you might want to use a pencil because you might start erasing some things as well. But then you have to be able to be willing to do a thorough inventory of yourself. You need to take everything that's inside of you that has created issues for you in your life, and you need to put it on paper. You need to be able to look at it so it's not festering inside of your being, which is who you are, where your heart is. Take it out, put it on paper. Now, once you do that, we also want you to take out all those things that are inside of you that have brought you joy and happiness and put that on paper as well. It's just as important. But when you do this, then you're going to be ready to take step number 5. But it's not going to be easy. But guess what? What you perceive to be hard becomes easy. So let me just give you this illustration. Good habits are hard to obtain. Bad habits are easy to obtain. Good habits are easy to live with. Bad habits are hard to live with. So let's move on to step 5. Now, step 5 can be perceived as being difficult, but it really isn't, because really what you're doing is you're openly confessing all those things that have created you issues, all those behavioral situations you've had in your life that have caused you problems with maybe family, girlfriend, work, etc. So this does not mean that you need to expose the darkest part of yourself, those experiences that you have that are secret to you, to everyone that you know. No, that's not what we're talking about here. But it is very important that you have to be willing to share those dark secrets with someone that you trust. Obviously, that should be your sponsor, and it could be your clergy or whatever, but it's extremely important for you to be willing and to be courageous to be able to share those things, because once you share those things, that darkness is no longer inside of you. It's outside of you. And that light that's inside of you starts to overcome all the darkness that's inside of you. And that shuts the door from then coming back in. Had I known what the results of these steps would have done for my life at the time, I would have tried to be a track star to get through them, because of the happiness and the joy that it's brought to my life. And more importantly, the understanding of what my purpose is in life. I mean, isn't that what we all want? Don't we all want to understand what our purpose is? Why are we here? What are we doing here? Where are we going from here? These answers will be provided to you when you are willing to humble yourself, to be courageous, and when you do these steps. You will become humble. Well, when you humble yourself and you have courage to do these steps, you will experience a life beyond your wildest dreams. Now we're going to move on to step 6. And step 6 is what we refer to as change of heart. Now, what does that mean? C.S. Lewis said once, and I really love this quote by C.S. Lewis. And I might have said it before, but if I didn't, then here it goes. I'll say it anyway, because it's one of my favorite. And he said, being humble is not thinking less of yourself. It's just thinking of yourself less. And that's in essence what step 6 is about. It's being willing to say, hey, I have weaknesses. This is why I created the life that I created that was confusing and difficult and so forth, because I focused on those weaknesses. And I now know that by my being humble and being courageous to do and work these steps and live these steps in my life, it will take those weaknesses and make them strong. And that's basically, and that is exactly what step 6 is about. It's about you understanding that you have weaknesses in your life that have caused you problems, that have created issues and difficulties for you in your life. And so when you surrender those weaknesses, and then you become willing to do the footwork necessary, and when you become willing to surrender them to that power greater than yourself and ask for direction, then that footwork becomes very beneficial for you, because it helps you strengthen those weaknesses. Whereas now it's not a weakness, but it's a strength. And that is in essence what step 6 is all about. The idea for these steps to work in your life is that you have to work them in order for them to work in your life. And when you work them, they start working in your life, and that's when your life becomes purposeful. That's when you start understanding where you need to go in order to be happy, joyous, and free, so that you can reach out to help others. And when you do that, there's no greater happiness. Remember that the problem is not a problem. It's the way you think about it as a problem. That's the problem. So when we do these steps, when we work with you, we are going to change that problem that you're thinking about into thinking about the solution. When you find that solution in your life, then you are now living a life of purpose, a life of service, a life of love, a life of compassion, a life of kindness, a life of sanity, a life of joy.